Hey guys, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my February reading wrap up. And yeah, I read a lot of books this month. Most of them, if not yeah, pretty much most of them were fairy tale retellings in honor of the February readathon that was going on. Yeah, I left myself open to reading other books too, so I didn't get burned out, but I surprisingly didn't get burned out by reading pretty much just fairy tale retellings most of the month, so that was good. But yeah, and I also, surprisingly, aside from 3 books, I pretty much read ebooks all that month, which was very interesting. It was a challenge I wanted to see if I could do, just to read only ebooks and maybe cut down some of my ebook pile, because I have quite a few that I haven't gotten to because ebooks. But yeah, and I did really well, and I bought some more, so it didn't really help, but you know, I did get rid of a few, so it just didn't work for me. So yeah, with that in mind, let's just jump into the first one. Oh, but also first I wanted to say, if you want more thoughts and details on these books, content, I apologize about my braid. It just keeps falling out. So if my hair sticks up, it's just my hair. Anyways, what I was saying before, yes, if you want further thoughts or content details or anything like that that I may have forgotten to mention in these reviews, so on and so forth, I will leave my Goodreads reviews of all these books linked in the description so you can check them out, because I'm a big advocate for researching your own books and for your own tastes and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely check those out if you want more details on them. Also, I will be leaving the link to my FAEbruary Readathon vlog that I did. It was my first vlog. I'm very happy with it, even though it didn't go quite as I planned, but yeah, I'm still very happy with it. Some of these books I have more detailed thoughts in them, so yeah, you can check that out down below as well in case you missed it. So yeah, with that, we're just gonna jump into the first book, which I read twice. And it's not for probably the reasons you're thinking. That is An Unnatural Beanstalk by Brittany Fisher. This is a retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk. It is also the second book in the Entwined Tales series, which is a multi-author fairy tale retelling series, basically following the siblings of this woodcutter family who was blessed by this terrible fairy godfather. And yeah, and the kids keep getting cursed and stuff like that, so because that's real cool. Anyways, because I read 3 books in this series, and this was the first one I read, which was the second one. In this book, we follow Eva. She is a skilled harpist, and she's just a very kind person overall. So when she gets, when she does a kind deed for a neighbor, and it alerts her fairy godfather, he decides to bless her, mind you, with his abilities, that whenever she plays her harp, depending on what her mood is or her emotions, she will either make plants grow or die. That does not sound like a good gift at all. It's not one. So yeah, Eva tries to go into hiding so that people can't use her for her gift. However, she gets found out, and she gets basically kidnapped by this duke. Yeah, he kidnaps her, and basically like is gonna force her to marry him, and then he's like trying to take over the kingdom by using her magic. And in the midst of all this, gets roped in this farm boy named Jack. He meets Eva very briefly at a town function, and then she gets kidnapped, so he doesn't see her again. But then her fairy godfather basically comes, and he's just like, yeah, you can help her. And Jack's just like, what, me? So yeah, so then he goes off to try to help Eva, and it's their adventure trying to free themselves and free the kingdom from this insane duke. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I read it twice because I read it the first time, and then I reread it because I read it. I explained more about this in my vlog, so I'll just be very brief here. But yeah, I read it the first time in one day. I was in a really weird mood that day, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me what I felt about this book. I couldn't think about what I felt. I couldn't even rate the book. Most books I know pretty much by the end, oh yeah, I'm gonna rate it this. But this one, it was just like blank. I had blank everything about it. I just knew I liked it. So I went back and I reread it. Literally turned around and reread it. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. I really like Brittany Fisher's writing in general. I like her characters. the way she does romance, even in such a short book. She does the romance really well, where it feels natural and not like, you know, this is coming out of left field or whatever. But yeah, yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. The Duke is a interesting piece of work because he's like really smart, but he's also like really entitled. He, you know, he thinks like everything should just be done his way, and he has like the power to do it because he's got money and he's like got Eva and, you know, chained up doing his will and stuff. And it's just like, I don't know about you, but that is a terrifying villain. Like somebody who just like assumes he's gonna get his way all the time, and it's just like, yeah, no, let's not do that. Yeah, and I really liked Eva, I really liked Jack. Their character arcs were very well-rounded and developed, even for such a short book. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this one, and I gave it 4 stars after I read it the second time and knew what I wanted to rate it. Okay, so the second one I read was the first book in this series, and that is A Goose Girl by K.M. Shea. I'm not sure how to say the author's last name. People vary between, so I'm thinking it's Shea. Don't actually know. Yeah, this one, we follow Rin, I think that was her name. She's a handmaid to the princess who's being married off to this prince in a different kingdom. Things go awry, though, when the princess, who is a real piece of work, she decides all of a sudden, nah, I'm not going to do it. You're going to stand in for me as the princess. I'm going to be, you know, and I'm just going to leave and do my own thing in the world. And Rin's just like, I don't want to do this. So they basically magically force her to do it. So that's fun. So she has to pretend to be the princess while also trying to figure out how to tell the prince and like his family and stuff that she's not the princess, even though she can't tell them. Or she's also trying to convince the princess to come back to her duties. And yeah, there's a whole big mess Rin gets stuck in, and yeah, that's pretty much the story. It pretty much follows the Goose Girl fairy tale beat for beat, because it is a retelling of that tale. And that was one of its problems I had with it, was that it felt just like a bunch of checkboxes. Like the ability to, for the wind is a big part in the fairy tale. And that gets thrown in there, and I just was wondering, like, why? It didn't make sense for the story. It kind of just was thrown in there. The romance for Rin came out of totally left field. It's like, okay, you barely know each other and like you're like deeply in love. It's like, that doesn't really work, at least for me. And I don't know, it was okay. The princess was insufferable. Yeah, and yeah, there was just, I don't know, it was fine. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. I didn't really care for it. I've read better books by this author, so yeah, this one just didn't work for me. It's a well-written book, and it does well as a novella, but the out of left field romance and the whole fact that Rin didn't really do much. I mean, she couldn't do much in her situation, but also she didn't really, I don't know, she didn't feel like an active agent in her own story. She kind of just felt like she was along for the ride. So yeah, with that involved, yeah, I just gave it 3 stars. I didn't really care. So, okay, so in the same series, I read I think this is the 4th book. That is A Beautiful Curse by Kenley Davidson. This was like the last one I had on ebook. I didn't read all of them because I wasn't interested in all of them. And I had previously read the very last book, years ago, and I really liked it. I just didn't reread it this time. But anyways, I read A Beautiful Curse next. This is I think the 4th book. This is a Frog Prince retelling. It's a gender flipped retelling where the girl gets turned into the frog, not the guy. So yeah, in this one we follow Ellie. She's trying to become a scholar in this new kingdom, but she's not getting very far due to the male mentality in her, kind of in this kingdom, and how they don't want her to be a scholar, and they just blame people coming to the library on her beauty and stuff, because she is fairy blessed beauty. So basically she tries to get her inept fairy godfather to get rid of her beauty. He instead curses her to be a frog. So I wouldn't tick this guy off if I were you. So yeah, and then in the middle, I think Prince Cameron, I think that's his name, the prince of this kingdom, one of the princes, he gets involved with helping this talking frog, who is in fact Ellie. He just doesn't know it. And yeah, and it's that story. Didn't care for this one much either, unfortunately. Basically, Ellie was insufferable. She's one of those kind of strong feminist types, that the strong female type, that sort of character where she's like, I don't need anyone's help and I can do all these things and I'm so much smarter than everyone and nobody will let me do anything because of my beauty and stuff, which that was a fair criticism, because yes, everybody was blaming it on her beauty, and it's like, no, that's not the case. But she was so insufferable. She wasn't very nice to anybody. Really, I really don't even see what the prince saw in her to fall in love with her, because it's like, she's kind of insufferable. She didn't really learn, as far as I could tell. Like, yeah, she admitted one time that she was like grateful for somebody, but that was about it. Then there was the whole plot line of a woman trying to make it in a man's world. Sometimes that can work. Most of the time it does not. This was one of those times where it irked me beyond just sanity. Thankfully, this is such a short book, and she does get turned into a frog like halfway through or something like that. So thankfully I didn't have to live with it throughout the whole book, but still, it was there and it was irritating. So yeah, I did like the prince though. Prince Cameron, he was a sweetheart. I liked him. He basically saved the book, and is probably why I kept reading, because if it was just from her point of view, I'd just been like, no, bye, I'm leaving. So yeah, and this is also the most wrapped up book that I've ever read by this author, because this author tends to leave her series and stuff like very, like the main plot is wrapped up, but they're very open-ended for like other books or whatever. This was the most wrapped up book I've read by her, so yeah, that was nice. But yeah, didn't really care for this one either. I gave it 3 stars. If it was just Ellie without Cameron, it would have been a 2, but it wasn't, so it's a 3. Okay, the next book I read, this one is my new all-time favorite Cinderella book, which you will have heard about this a lot if you watched my vlog and also my last video about the fairy tale retelling tag, and that is Cinder, Stars, and Glass Slippers by Brittany Fisher. This is book 6 in her Classical Kingdom series. This one, this series you don't really have to read in order. Some of the books in the series you have to read in order, but this one is a standalone, so you can read it out of order. And yeah, I love this book. It's amazing. We follow in it, I'm not quite sure how to say the Cinderella character's name. I think it's either Elena or Eliana. I'm not sure how to say her name, but anyway, she has been living her whole life on the Navy ship for her kingdom because her father is like an admiral in the army, and she has the gifted ability because in this world, what's he called? Oh, the Maker, who is God in this world, because this is Christian fantasy, has given certain people magical abilities or gifts, and in her case, she has been gifted with the ability to hear the stars. The stars talk to her, she can talk to them, and which has saved her father's ship from many a storm, pirates, all kinds of things. Her gift is a secret though, and unfortunately it gets out. So her father decides she will be safer on land to take over her mother's, because her mother, when she was alive, was the Marchioness, I believe is how you say that word. So Eliana has, inherited that, and she is now, she's been shipped back by her father to like take over those parts, and she's not happy about it. But in the course of now living on land, she meets the prince of her kingdom, Prince Nicholas, and they strike up a very unlikely friendship because he's kind of a flirt. There are reasons behind his flirting though, and I thought the author did an amazing job describing that and like why he did that and stuff like that, why he was acting that way. And yeah, and so, but they strike up a friendship over their love of the sea and ships, and it's a very interesting friendship because Eliana doesn't want it at first, but Nicholas keeps like wanting information from her about how like the Navy works and stuff like that because he wants to get involved with the Navy and stuff like that. So yeah, they strike up a friendship and things go from there. And it is an amazing book. It is a whopper of a book though. The Kindle version is 594 pages. It is a whopper of a book, but it is worth every page, every word. I really adored this. The characters' growth and what they went through, and just, oh my goodness, what they went through. They went through so much trouble, so much heartache. Just let me tell you, it is like, it is not a high action plot. It is not even, but it's not even like high action stakes, but there are tons of stakes, really high. There's like a guy going around in the kingdom. He's like taking the gifted and he's like sucking their magic from them and killing them in the process. So there's that threat going on. There's a civil war going on in the kingdom itself. One place is like separating from the rest, and there's that going on. There's different secrets and problems with each of the characters. Nicholas has to deal with his father, who is a real piece of dirty work. I do not like that man. Oh my goodness. Nicholas keeps having to butt heads with his father, trying to do the right thing, and his father won't listen, and it's just, there's all kinds of things. Eliana has to deal with like her jealous cousin, and then there's just all these things that keep happening, and pain upon pain keeps being dished on these characters, but they get a happily ever after, and it's amazing, and it's so worth it. And yeah, I really like this book. I would highly recommend it. So far out of the Classical Kingdoms books, I feel this one is has the most faith content, which is very interesting because, I mean, it's Christian fantasy, but yeah, this one definitely had a lot of that. God definitely laid it on my heart to read this book at this time because I was trying to read them in order. So, you know, I skipped to book 6, even though I've only read the first 3 books in this series. And just, yeah, there's just something about the surrender, Eliana learning to surrender and let go and stuff like that, that I just really needed to hear at the time. And this book is just amazing. I really love it. Yeah, in fact, as of right now, I have ordered a physical copy. It should be here tomorrow as I'm filming this. So yeah, I'm really excited about this book, to hold it in my hands and to just read it again someday, because it's really that amazing, that powerful. It has a lot of faith content of just like letting go and doing what the maker has, or what the maker has told them or created them to be, and just how to use those gifts to the best of their ability, but also like when to let go of them. And it's just, yeah, I just really, really love this book, and I really hope other people will pick it up too. And it also has a gorgeous cover. Okay, the next book I read, because I then read 2 more Cinderella retellings, which probably wasn't a smart thing to read 3 in a row, but it didn't seem to do anything to me, and they were all very different. So, yeah, the next one I read was The Reluctant Godfather by Alison Thibault. This is a book I've been hearing hundreds of good things about forever, ever since it came out, I think. This is another gender-flipped retelling where the fairy godmother is a fairy godfather named Burndy in this kingdom, and he just likes to bake. He wants to bake. He doesn't want to keep dealing with his 2 godchildren who is the prince of this kingdom, and this girl who's being Ella, who is being like subjected by her stepfamily, and he just wishes would get a backbone. But yeah, so Burndy gets the brilliant idea at the prince's ball where he's supposed to find a bride. He's like, hey, I'll get them together, they can get married and be happy, and then I can be left alone by the fairy council, and I can just bake and do whatever I want. And things don't go as planned. From there, he definitely tries that, but it doesn't go as planned, and this is a really short book, so I can't really say much more than that. I gave this 4 stars. It was supremely cute. I ended up reading it in one evening. I didn't really mean to, but it was just like, oh, this is so short, I'll just keep reading. But yeah, I really liked it. I really liked the author's skill in making Burndy just this lovable grump, because it is very hard, I know from experience, it is very hard to write somebody who is grumpy and also has like a kind side, and it's like, it's really hard to balance those two without it being over the top one way or the other. And yeah, she did an amazing job writing this character to be like lovable but also insufferable, because there's one part near like the middle to the endish of the book where it's like, I just wanted to kick his teeth out. I wanted to kick Burndy's teeth out for what he did, and just, yeah, if you read this book, you probably know what scene I'm talking about, but yeah, I wanted to kick his teeth out at that point. He redeemed himself in the end by, like, doing the right thing, but still, it was just like, I wanted to strangle him at that point. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Really liked it. This was one of the specific ebooks I wanted to read this year, so yeah, I'm really glad I got to it. And yeah, I just really, really enjoyed this one. This was super cute. Okay, and the third Cinderella retelling I read was a surprise. I didn't actually went into this book not thinking I would like it, and that is The Midnight Prince by Angie. Oh, I looked up how to say her name. I'm not going to say it right. Gigalianos? No. I looked it up, but I don't remember, but here's the author's last name. I don't know how to say it. She does have a pronunciation on her author profile on Goodreads, so you can look it up if you want to know how to pronounce it, but I did read it, but it wasn't right before this video, so I forgot. So, yeah, I apologize. Anyways, about this book, I originally was not going to read this book, because it sounded like it had one of those messy breakup things that at the beginning, so then like the characters are mad at each other because of their messy breakup sort of things. It's a second chance romance. So I was originally going to skip it because the description made it sound really bad. But then during it was like a stuff for your Kindle event or something like that, I was looking through the fantasy section. It came up on there and it was free. So I was like, okay, I wasn't going to read it before, but I'll try it because it's free and I am interested in other books in this series. So I picked it up and I actually pleasantly was surprised. I really liked this. And it's not as messy as you think it is. Yeah, the description makes it actually sound way messier than it is. But anyways, in this one we follow Prince Kernan? I'm not sure. That could be how you say his name. Anyways, he's the last Fae prince. All of his brothers before him, he's like the fourth prince, but all of his brothers got killed in a war. He's the only one who managed to survive. So now he is going to be crowned the prince of the Autumn Court. He also doesn't want to come back home because his girlfriend going to announce her as his bride at this last ball before he was sent to war and stuff, and she never even showed up. So he feels like he was rejected by her. He has been trying to avoid her ever since. And Alina, I think is her name, if I'm remembering correctly. I'm forgetting everybody's names today, but she is a half human, half fae servant girl in the house and in their castle and stuff. And she has been avoiding him, and because from her perspective, she went to the ball and then he basically cut her down and said he'd never marry her in front of all these people. When he comes back, they're trying to avoid each other, but then they start realizing when they do meet each other and actually explain their situations, they start realizing their memories aren't matching because he thought she never showed up. She said she did. And he's like, what? So then they both kind of just put aside their differences and they're like, okay, something weird is going on here. We have to see whose memories are correct and whose have been possibly tampered with. And it's just their quest basically to figure out in these 3 days time what happened. I really enjoyed it though. I thought the author wrote this very, very well. She wrote the whole their memories were messed with, and they both have good reasons to not want to speak to each other again. They both have reasons from their opinions of thinking the other betrayed them and stuff, and it's never done in an immature way. They are both very mad at each other at first. They're both very I'm not sure about this person anymore, so on and so forth, but then they kind of set that aside. They are very mature in the fact that they set aside these differences and they're like, okay, something is not adding up here. We need to figure this out. I just really liked that. I will say, the book did end with a lot of questions, that were not answered, because the main conflict with the relationship and their memories and stuff like that, that is resolved. The main conflict in this book is resolved at the end. It is very satisfying, that resolving. But the reasons behind it, and then there's some stuff that comes up about Alina's past and stuff like that. There's some stuff that comes up there that those things are not answered. Those things are actually left quite open-ended. So it's kind of you got answers for what was important to this story, but there's not answers for some other things did someone intentionally try to do this, so on and so forth. I mean, I can't say too much because that's the end, but there are a few questions left and you're kind of oh, okay, that's how we're ending. But yeah, overall though, I really liked this book. For a book that I didn't think I would like, it turned out to be a pleasant surprise, and I gave it 4 stars, and I'm honestly thinking about buying a physical copy of this because I really did enjoy it that much, and I was thinking about it a lot several days after I read the book. So yeah, and it has a beautiful cover, but this whole series has beautiful covers, but yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites. Okay, the next book I read is not a fairy tale retelling. This was an e-arc I received from the author in exchange for my honest opinion, so thank you very much to Nikki Chapelway for this book, and that is A House of Blood by Nikki Chapelway. This is the second book in the An Apprentice of Death series, which An Apprentice of Death is the first book. I read it last year. It was one of my favorites from last year, so I was really, really excited for this book. This continues Alara and Dirk's adventures and like their reconnection and stuff like that, and along with some other shenanigans they get into. I can't get into too much of what goes on in this book because obviously it's the second in a series. There are major spoilers in it for the first book. I really enjoyed this one. I will say I did not enjoy it as much as the first book. I'm not fully sure why. It could have been my mood at the time. I did also, when it focused more towards the middle, towards the end, more on Alara and Dirk, I was more into it than the beginning. The beginning was a lot of recap of what had happened in the first book, which was perfectly fine because I did not reread the first book before I read this one, which was okay because I remembered the majority of it. Yeah, it's just different things. They're in this town because Alara's joined a mercenary group. They're trying to figure out a mystery there. I don't know. The mystery there was interesting because we do have another perspective from a different character in this one, and I didn't really care much for her. Jinx is her name. She was okay. I just kind of feel like, aside from telling that side of the story when the other two left, like, I don't really see the point of her yet, but I did enjoy her enough that I would be curious to see more about her. I don't really have a full grasp on her. I did really enjoy being with our two main leads, though. They are really good, really amazing. I just love their characters so much. So yeah, when it was focusing more on them towards the end, more than just jumping back and forth between the three of them all the time, I really enjoyed that more. And then, of course, because it's Nikki Chapelway, we ended up in some like cultist temple that they have to get out of. Things happen there, and I'm a little nervous about what a character may have done there, but I don't think they did anything. I don't know. But yeah, I'm really nervous about that. And the ending did feel a little, the very ending climax did feel a little, it wasn't rushed so much. It was a little jarring, maybe with switching between characters and stuff, but that could have just been because I was reading it too fast. So that could be a me thing. But yeah, I still really enjoyed this book. I still really enjoy these characters. I can't wait for the third book. I gave this one 4.5 stars because it didn't quite reach 5 because at the beginning I was just getting into it, and while it was interesting, I was also just kind of like, okay, where are we going with this? So yeah, it is a 4.5 stars, very, very close to a 5, but not quite there. But yeah, I still really enjoyed this, and I will be getting a physical copy as soon as I can because that cover is epic. It is just epic. Okay, the next book I read is actually one I can hold up because this was one of the few physical copies I read, and that is War, a collection of poetry in free verse by Angela R. Watts. This is just exactly what it says. It's a book of poetry and like free verse poetry, type little things about just life and war and just the wars of life and yourself and stuff like that, and I really liked this. I gave it 4 stars. It was very powerful. Lots of the poems really hit me. Yeah, and it's amazing how such few words can really impact a person. I am not one for liking poetry that much. Most poetry I just look at and I'm just like, I don't get it. There's very few poetry I actually like. This is definitely one of the ones I really, really like. Yeah, I just like her heart behind this and just the rawness you can feel, but also the hope at the same time. And yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I would definitely recommend it if you like free verse type poetry and you want to check out a different author. All right, so the next one I picked, I don't know if anyone remembers this. Sometime last year, I think it was way at the beginning of last year, I asked in a community tab post for people to give me numbers with a new or an old side of which I should pick from my Goodreads want to read shelf, because that is basically my TBR. So I was trying to do it to pick other random books that maybe I was ignoring or whatever. So yeah, I had a bunch of those pieces of paper written down. A lot of subscribers and followers gave their opinions of like, so it would be like 16 old or whatever, or 15 new or something, and then I would pick from that list of the books I could get. So yeah, I decided randomly to use some of those pieces of paper to pick my next book to read, and I did pick one. This was submitted by Nikki from Writing for Jesus. It was 16 old, so I picked from the old side, and since my library is currently still closed due to freezing pipe repairs, I had to pick from books I already had. So I ended up picking for that one Dagger Sleep by Trisha Mingrink. This is the first book in the Beyond the Tale series. It is a fairy tale retelling, gender flipped, of Sleeping Beauty. This one, basically in this one, we follow Princess Rosanna in present time, and she is informed that she has been selected as the curse breaker because their prince 100 years ago, the high prince of the United Kingdoms in their area, he was cursed to prick his finger on his dagger and fall into a 100-year sleep. Rosanna has been chosen to wake him up, and also we go back and forth in the storyline between her point of view and then 100 years ago when Alexander is still awake and he decides to try to break his curse. He tries to leave and find a way to break his curse, and it's that story. It's flip-flops between the two of them. This is Christian allegory, fantasy, and I hate to give this a low rating because I really do like Trisha Mingrink's Blades of Actar series. I also really like her other books, her more like elf and fae romance books that she writes under her pen name Tara Grace. I really like those books. I couldn't connect with this one. Well, first of all, there's the different world building because I think she was going for the same thing she did with Blades, which is in that series she combined the Wild West with like medieval times. So it's like, you know, they would ride in Western saddles, but they'd use swords instead of guns and, you know, things like that. So that one worked really well. This one for Dagger Sleep, she used a combination of Native American culture and medieval time period. So like they would wear buckskin clothing and travel in canoes and stuff, but they would also live in castles and be called like prince and princess and stuff. So that didn't bother me, the combination of that, and then throw in some mountain hillbillies at the same time. I'm not quite sure where the mountain hillbillies came from, but anyways, they were in there too. Yeah, that didn't bother me as much, the weird mashup of world building, but I have read quite a few reviews. I was also talking to a friend who she had read the book recently, and a lot of people didn't like that combination. They thought it was very confusing, and the author should have just stuck with one or the other. But yeah, I thought it was unique, and I pretty much just pictured them as like Native Americans going around in the Appalachian regions because I grew up in that area. So yeah, that was really nice to see that in a fantasy setting because it's like, oh, I could picture what it looked like and stuff like that. So the world building didn't really bug me that much, but I know it will bug some people, so I thought I'd throw it in there. My main thing was I didn't connect with the characters at all. Rosanna was just there. I didn't care for her. I did not care for her, but I also didn't care for her. She was just there. She was just a person. And I didn't really care about, like, Damien. I think that's his name. He's, like, the guide taking her to the prince. But I didn't really care for him either. I didn't really care for anybody. Alexander annoyed the heck out of me. He was so entitled and stuff. I mean, I know that was part of his character. He annoyed me for most of the book until I found a character who was even more annoying than him. And then he kind of just slipped into the just fine category. I mean, I didn't even realize there was another character who could be more annoying than him. But there was, amazingly enough. But yeah, I couldn't connect with it. I did like some things that she did with it, like with the Appalachian setting and stuff like that. I did like how she put in the allegory things of like who Jesus was and the Holy Spirit and like how the Fae were like the angels and stuff like that. And I liked some of the elements, the allegorical elements, but otherwise, though, the plot, the characters, even just some of the allegorical things of just being typical for, like, a Christian allegory, it just fell flat. I just didn't care. I kept pushing on. In fact, it was very, very slow and boring at first. I'd like 21%. I was like almost done. I was just like, I don't want to keep, it's like, this is boring. They're just doing the same thing. But I did read a little further, and then I don't know, I just got interested enough to continue reading. But in all honesty, I probably should have just DNF'd this book because I didn't end up caring that much for it. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. I think it would work for a lot of people, and a lot of people do love this series, but it just didn't work for me. So, yeah, that was a disappointment, because I really did want to like it, but you can't like them all, unfortunately. So, yeah. Okay, but the next book I read, I really did like. That is Go Teen Writers Write Your Novel. This is by Stephanie Morel, Jill Williamson, and Shannon Ditmore. This is a writing craft book about writing your novel. It's exactly what the title says, and I gave this 5 stars. This was an amazing book. I underlined a ton of things. I really took my time through this, and I just really enjoyed this. This helped me with a couple issues I was having with my own story that I'm writing right now, and just, yeah, it's just full of good advice, lots of good tips. Definitely, I still have to watch myself when I read writing craft books to not sit there and then, like, compare myself or, want to set to an exact set of rules, because I don't need to when I'm first drafting. Like, seriously, no, I just need to get the story out as it needs to. So, sometimes reading craft books does that to me, but that is a me thing, not the book's fault. This one is very encouraging. They repeatedly tell you throughout that there's no one right way to write a book, and that is very true, and just, yeah, I really enjoyed this. This really did inspire me. It really helped me a lot. I did talk about this book more also in my reading vlog, so, yeah, if you want to hear more thoughts about that one, there's more in there. But yeah, really, really enjoyed this. Really would recommend it for writers of all ages. Go Teen Writers is just their website, so that's why it's titled that, because they originally started for teens, but it's perfectly great and helpful for adults as well. So yeah, and even younger people. So yeah, I really enjoyed this and would highly recommend it if you're looking for a writing craft book. Okay, and the last book I read, I don't want to talk about this book, because I don't know how. That is Shelter of Wings, Volume 1. This is a Christian manga. See? Christian manga. And I really wanted to like this. I really did. I thought I would from the description stuff, but yeah, this was one of the manga I wanted to read this year. I read it. I gave it 3 stars. I just don't know what to say about it, because, like, the artwork, top notch. It's amazing artwork. I really like the action and the way the characters look, and the difference between, like, and then, like, the angels and the demons and the stuff like that, because it's a spiritual warfare. Basically, there's this spiritual warfare of angels and demons going on around this 12-year-old girl named Jenna, who lost her mother in a car accident. She's struggling, and it's also just the spiritual warfare around her. That is the basics of this plot. But there's so many things. First of all, I really liked the angels and the demons side of the story. I really liked the spiritual warfare that we can't see and how that would look like affecting the humans and stuff. I did like that plot. However, I also didn't like those plots, basically because we're introduced to like 10 different demons and 10 different angels, I kid you not, at like one time, and they all look very similar. And even though some of them have very different personalities, they weren't on page enough for me to get to know them better before I was just jumping to something else. So while it's a good thing the spiritual warfare aspect is there, it's also a bad thing, because it's not the spiritual warfare is a bad thing. It's all the characters. There's too many characters. For one volume, there's way too many people introduced. And there's like, she has a note at the end for volume 2 that still has not been released. I don't know if it ever will be. This was published back in 2015. I don't know if the series will ever continue, but hey, it could. Anyway, she mentioned the blurb on the back that we meet even more characters in the second volume, and I started cringing because I was like, no, please, no. I haven't even gotten used to the ones that are here. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot of things. There's at least 3 different plot lines going on as well, which if the series continues and it gets long enough that we can untangle a lot of these things that I'm having issues with, it could be fine. This could just be a very messy first volume. Some of them do that. I've had that a lot with manga where it's like the first few volumes maybe aren't that great, but it gets better as the series goes on. I can't judge that with this one because it only is one volume and it doesn't really work as a standalone. Jenna also annoyed me. The humans in the story kind of annoyed me. I actually would almost have preferred if this was just showing the spiritual warfare side of things and like the angels and the demons were the main part. And just like, yeah, there's like God's chosen people that they're protecting and stuff like that, but it's just different people that they're protecting on a daily basis in their battles and stuff like that. I think that would have been a better storyline because Jenna's just not very engaging as a character. Her brother isn't either. I don't know. I felt annoyed by them more than drawn in. I liked the angels better. Then there's like this separate plot line where these two demons are rebelling against Satan. They want to take over. And then there's also this other side plot where these three angels are protecting like this place where they've locked up a bunch of demons and the demons are trying to free their fellow demons. And I don't know, there's too much going on. And then we have our main guardian angel here. He's protecting Jenna. He's trying to help her understand spiritual warfare and stuff like that. And then you've got her side of the story with her guilt with her mother, and then figuring out her gifts and stuff like that with her artwork and stuff. And it's just, there's too much. For one little volume, there's too much. And it was kind of got overwhelming at times. A couple points my brain started to hurt because I couldn't keep up with what was going on. And I couldn't really quite see the step ahead of like where we were going with this thing. So I really wanted to like this, and I do like some aspects of it, but at the same time, I don't like it. It's a really weird thing. Yeah, I really don't know how to put it into words because it's just too much. It's too much for one little volume. I do hope we get more because I want to see if it will pan itself out better in another volume or even two or something, but I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if the next volume will ever be released. So, yeah, I don't know. But, yeah, it has potential to be a really great series. But for right now, as just one volume, it's a little too much. And, yeah, it's just too much. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this, which is really disappointing because I really wanted to like this one. I really thought I would. And I'm kind of disappointed that it's only, like, so-so. Like, I sort of like it, but I also sort of dread more characters. So, because it's like, I mean, I like big casts of characters in my books, but they need to be introduced in a way that makes sense and not just all of them at one time. It's just kind of like, here they all are right now. And it's just like, no, that is too much. You need to spread them out, especially in a manga series, because this isn't like one big novel. This is like, you know, if you chopped up a novel into a manga, it would take up, you know, depending on how big your book is, it would be several volumes, would be one novel. That sort of thing. So throwing all these characters in one volume of a manga wouldn't work. This would be like the equivalent of throwing all, like, 20 plus characters into the first, like, 3 chapters of your book. It wouldn't work. People wouldn't even remember anybody. They'd just be confused all the time. So yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. If it had been drawn out a little bit more of like, here are some of the problems going on. Maybe focused on Jenna's part of the story, and maybe a couple other things like this, the demons and the angels fighting each other overall. Maybe this demon rebellion or something. And then just show little bits and pieces. Like, yeah, I think that would have worked better than just, here's all of it at one time. Yeah, because it was way too much. But yeah. So yeah, 3 stars. Don't know if it'll ever be continued. I don't know if I'll read it again. Hope maybe on a reread it would be better, but not now. I can't handle it right now. So yeah, that is it. Those are all the books I read in February. I'm sorry to end on kind of a sour note, but that was the last book I read in the month, so here we are. But yeah, I really enjoyed a lot of these books. I really didn't care for some other ones. So yeah, I'm really glad that I had a good balance this month. I actually had my first 5-star, which was Cinder, Stars, and Glass Slippers this year. That isn't a reread. So that was really nice. Second closest one was obviously A House of Blood. But yeah, I just really enjoyed these. Was really surprised by some of these. Yeah, I consider it an all-round pretty good reading month. So yeah, aside from the few that were just kind of like, but you know, you get those. You can't, like I said before, you can't love them all. Let me know down below what you guys have been reading recently and all your bookish news and things and your thoughts. I really love all your comments and replying to them. It's so great to see that people really enjoy what I talk about and stuff. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye!